It was an ordinary morning at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, the kind of bustling day when the sound of rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, and hurried footsteps blended into one familiar airport symphony. Travelers from all over the world stood in winding lines clutching their passports, waiting for their turn at the customs counter. Most were tired, jet-lagged, or preoccupied with making their connections. But at counter number 7, something happened that would soon capture the Internet's imagination and spark one of the strangest mysteries in modern travel: history. She looked like any other passenger. At first glance, a young woman in her late 20s, wearing a white blouse, beige travel pants, and a small brown leather backpack. Her hair was neatly tied back, and she carried herself with quiet confidence. When her turn came, she stepped forward and handed her passport to the immigration officer, a middle-aged man named David Nolan, who had worked at the airport for nearly 15 years. He'd seen it all: fake IDs, forged stamps, even diplomatic passports that raised eyebrows. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see that day. David flipped open the dark blue passport, expecting to see the familiar insignia of some country, maybe France, Japan, or Brazil. But instead his brow furrowed. The emblem embossed on the cover was nothing he recognized: a golden crest of a phoenix surrounded by an unfamiliar circular script. He turned the page and began reading. His expression changed from confusion to disbelief. At the top of the document it read, "Kingdom of Torenza." David blinked twice. He thought maybe he was tired. Maybe it was a new microstate or a special territory he hadn't heard of. But after a quick glance at the world database on his terminal, he froze. There was no country named Torenza. Not on the UN list, not on any continent, not in history, nothing. It didn't exist. Trying to remain calm, David looked up at the woman. "Miss, could you please confirm your country of origin?" he asked in his usual professional tone. She smiled politely. "Of course," she replied in fluent English, though with an accent he couldn't quite place. "Torenza. It's a small country between France and Spain." David's hand paused mid-air. "Between France and Spain?" he repeated, confused. "You mean Andorra?" The woman shook her head. "No," she said gently. "Torenza. It's small, but it's been independent for centuries." David stared at her for a moment, then back at the passport. He didn't want to alarm her, yet his mind raced. He discreetly pressed the small alert button under his desk, a signal for secondary verification. Within minutes, 2 Homeland Security officers approached the counter, their presence quiet but unmistakable. "Ma'am, we just need to verify something. Please step aside," one of them said courteously. She nodded without protest, her expression calm and unbothered, as though this sort of attention was nothing new to her. They guided her into a small inspection room nearby, where a senior customs officer named Karen Doyle joined them. On the table lay her belongings: a passport, a boarding pass, and a small silver pendant shaped like a wing. Karen began asking routine questions. Name: Alessia Roan. Date of birth: March 11, 1996. Place of birth: Torenza City. Karen's pen stopped mid-note. "And where exactly is Torenza City located?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. Alessia tilted her head slightly as though surprised by the question. "Just west of the Pyrenees Mountains," she said. "You must have heard of it. We're small, but we're peaceful people." Karen exchanged a quick look with the others. She typed Torenza into her laptop, trying every spelling variation possible. No results, no maps, no embassy, no currency records, nothing at all. It was as if the place had never existed. The passport itself was perfectly detailed. It had microprinting, holograms, and even a barcode that seemed to scan correctly. But when they entered the barcode data into the system, the response came back: "Invalid document, country code not found." That's when things started to get weird. Karen leaned forward. "Miss Roan, can you tell us about your flight? Where did you board?" Alessia smiled again, her tone as polite as ever. "From Torenza International Airport. Direct flight 217 to New York." Karen's pen dropped. "Direct flight from where?" "From Torenza," Alessia repeated patiently, as though explaining to a child. "We have only one international route, usually to Paris or New York." Karen excused herself and whispered to her colleagues, "Check the flight records for 217. Within minutes, they found the flight in the system. An inbound from Tokyo, not Torenza. Alessia's name wasn't on the passenger manifest, yet she held a boarding pass printed in the same style as all others, with the same airline logo and a matching timestamp. By now, word had spread through the airport office. A woman with a passport from a country that didn't exist had arrived on a flight that wasn't hers, yet carried documents too perfect to be faked. When asked if she had any identification besides the passport, Alessia handed over a sleek, metallic-looking card, like a futuristic ID badge, with her picture and symbols none of them recognized. The letters didn't match any known language. Karen asked, "Do you have a phone we can check?" Alessia hesitated for the first time. Then she nodded and handed over a small glass-like device. It looked like a phone but had no visible buttons or logos. When Karen tapped it, it powered on, showing a holographic interface that made everyone step back in shock. "What is this thing?" one officer whispered. Alessia simply said, "It's standard issue in my country." The officers exchanged glances. They didn't know whether to call the State Department or NASA. The hours dragged on as they tried to cross-check every detail. Alessia remained calm, sipping water, answering every question politely but without giving any new information. When asked about her government, she said, "We are a monarchy. His Majesty King Ryan IV has ruled for 20 years. When asked to draw her country on a map, she pointed confidently to a blank area near the border of France, where only Andorra existed. Finally, an intelligence officer joined the interrogation. "Miss Roan," he said, "you realize there is no country named Torenza on Earth?" Alessia frowned. "That's impossible," she said softly. "I just came from there." When they showed her a modern map, she stared at it for several minutes, visibly shaken. "Where is it?" she whispered. "It should be right there, between France and Spain." Her composure cracked for the first time. "This can't be right," she murmured, her voice trembling. "Did something happen? Did the border change?" The officers exchanged glances again. Karen leaned in. "Miss Roan, are you saying you came from another place? Another world?" Alessia looked up at her slowly. "I don't know," she said finally. "But if Torenza isn't on your map, then maybe this isn't my world." The room went silent. That night, airport security locked her passport and belongings in an evidence vault. Alessia was escorted to a private room under observation. No record of her fingerprints or face appeared in any international database. Her DNA didn't match any existing profiles. Even her luggage tags had flight codes that belonged to no known airline. By morning, the story had leaked. Mystery woman from non-existent country detained at JFK. Social media exploded. Conspiracy theorists, journalists, and scientists all rushed to explain who she was. Some said it was an elaborate hoax. Others believed she was a time traveler or from a parallel dimension. But what happened next, the way she vanished before dawn, leaving behind only that impossible passport, was something no one could explain. And it was only the beginning of the Torenza mystery. The morning after the airport incident, the story of Alessia Roan and her mysterious Torenza passport had spread across news channels, social media platforms, and private chat groups worldwide. Journalists called it the most baffling immigration case in modern history, while conspiracy theorists speculated endlessly about parallel universes, secret nations, and time travelers. At JFK Airport, the mood was tense. Officials were on high alert, trying to piece together the inexplicable sequence of events from the previous day. Everyone who had come into contact with Alessia, from customs officers to security personnel, was required to give statements, describe the interactions, and recount every minute of the interrogation. Despite their efforts, one fact remained indisputable. No existing country or official record matched the name Torenza, and no database contained any trace of Alessia Roan's travel history. Karen Doyle, the senior customs officer who had first confronted Alessia, sat in her office staring at a digital map projected on her wall. Multiple layers of geopolitical data, airline routes, and border maps were overlaid, but no combination revealed any sign of Torenza. "It doesn't make sense," she muttered to herself, tapping the table anxiously. "Every logical possibility has been eliminated. Yet here she is, a living, breathing woman claiming she's from this place. Something is off, but what?" Meanwhile, analysts at the Department of Homeland Security began scouring global records. They checked ICAO codes, cross-referenced UN country registries, verified airline manifests, and even contacted international embassies to see if any nation had a special relationship with a state called Torenza. Nothing yielded results. Even classified intelligence networks returned null. For a moment, some began to wonder if this was a sophisticated hoax designed to test security procedures. But Alessia's demeanor, calm, coherent, and strangely knowledgeable about international norms, made it hard to dismiss her as an ordinary prankster. Outside official channels, amateur sleuths and internet investigators quickly took to social media. On Twitter, threads exploded with screenshots of her passport, flight boarding pass, and photos of Alessia in the airport. Hashtags like Torenza Passport, Mystery Traveler, and Parallel Worlds trended within hours. Some theorists argued she was part of a secret nation that existed outside global recognition. Others suggested Torenza was a micronation, a tiny self-declared state with no international legitimacy. A few dared to suggest far more outlandish ideas, that she had traveled through time, or that Torenza existed in a parallel dimension intersecting with Earth's reality. As the world speculated, Karen Doyle decided to take matters into her own hands. She had seen thousands of travel irregularities in her career, but something about Alessia felt different. Her passport, despite being invalid in official databases, had security features that were surprisingly sophisticated. Microprinting, holograms, and embedded digital chips were all professionally executed, far beyond what a simple novelty passport could achieve. It raised questions: who made this document? How did she acquire it? And most importantly, why was she here at JFK? Karen reached out to an aviation historian and cryptography expert, Dr. Victor Haynes. Within hours, Haynes had examined high-resolution scans of the passport. From a materials perspective, he explained, this passport is authentic in terms of manufacturing standards. The holographic seals, embedded RFID chip, and laser-etched patterns suggest it was produced in a legitimate passport printing facility. Yet there is no government known to issue it. It's unprecedented. Meanwhile, Alessia remained in the secure observation room, watching the news coverage on a small tablet. She seemed unnervingly calm. She occasionally scribbled notes in a small leather-bound notebook, which she refused to surrender to authorities. When asked about it, she merely said, "It's my journal. It has nothing to do with your world." Her words, calm yet enigmatic, only fueled the growing speculation surrounding her. Attempts to verify her identity outside the passport met similar dead ends. Social security records returned nothing. International criminal databases had no match. Even facial recognition scans of global airports and security cameras failed to find her anywhere. It was as if Alessia had simply appeared in New York, fully formed, with a valid travel document from a country that did not exist. The Department of Homeland Security decided to consult the Department of State, who escalated the matter to a high-level task force composed of experts in international law, cryptography, aviation, and intelligence. They convened in a secure conference room examining every detail: her appearance, her documents, her behavior, and her knowledge of international procedures. Alessia answered questions fluently, explaining protocols, visa requirements, and customs regulations, but always in reference to Torenza. Every detail she gave was internally consistent, yet completely disconnected from reality. One officer, a skeptical legal analyst named Maria Chen, remarked, "It's like she has complete knowledge of a country that doesn't exist. The question isn't whether she's lying, it's how she could know so much about something that has no foundation in our world." In the coming days, attempts to trace her claimed origin revealed anomalies in satellite and geospatial data. Alessia insisted she had flown from Torenza International Airport, yet no satellite imagery could confirm the existence of such a facility. Even older maps showed no sign of a settlement or infrastructure matching her description. Analysts began to entertain possibilities that they had previously dismissed, that perhaps she was from a place that existed outside conventional geography or history. Meanwhile, Alessia began cooperating, but only to a point. She answered questions about Torenza's governance, its history, and culture. She described its government as a constitutional monarchy, with a king who had ruled for decades. She detailed festivals, currencies, and even regional dialects. Every answer was coherent, detailed, and consistent with her previous claims. Yet the authorities still had no tangible evidence to corroborate any of it. The internet frenzy reached unprecedented levels. Bloggers, podcasters, and YouTubers dissected every frame of her passport, analyzed security footage, and debated the authenticity of her story. Interviews with experts suggested that if Torenza was real, it had somehow remained entirely hidden from international recognition, an impossible feat in the modern age of satellites, global travel, and digital databases. Some proposed the unlikely idea that Torenza was part of a secretive experimental territory, or even a testing ground for intelligence agencies. Others leaned into the supernatural or science fiction angle, suggesting a parallel world or timeline crossover. Despite all this, Alessia never wavered. Her calmness in the face of scrutiny only heightened the sense of mystery. The authorities realized that the real challenge wasn't just understanding her origin, it was proving it. Without verification from a recognized government or tangible geographic evidence, any claim she made could be dismissed as fantasy, no matter how convincing her demeanor or documentation. By the end of the week, the case had grown from a routine airport incident into an international phenomenon. Diplomatic channels, intelligence networks, and investigative journalists were all now focused on one impossible question. What, or who, is Torenza? And while the authorities debated, Alessia remained serene, seated in the observation room, occasionally flipping through her small journal, sometimes gazing out the window at the bustling runways below, as if she were contemplating the entire world that did not yet recognize her. She had arrived quietly with a passport from nowhere, and in doing so she had captured the attention and curiosity of the entire globe. The story was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The coming days would reveal more clues, strange correspondences, anomalies in international travel logs, and hints that Torenza's secrets were far deeper than anyone had imagined. The mystery of Alessia Rohn and her Torenza passport had become a puzzle for the world to solve, challenging assumptions about identity, geography, and reality itself. And as the authorities, journalists, and experts scrambled to find answers, one truth became increasingly clear. Whatever Torenza was, it was hiding in plain sight, and it had brought its representative directly to the heart of the United States. By the second week after Alessia Rohn's arrival at JFK Airport, the story of the Torenza passport had become a global phenomenon. News outlets were flooded with headlines questioning reality itself. The woman from a country that doesn't exist. Torenza Passport Girl stuns airport officials, and is Torenza real or a viral hoax? Social media amplified the mystery, with every frame of her passport and security footage analyzed repeatedly by armchair detectives and professional analysts alike. Yet despite worldwide scrutiny, the puzzle only deepened. Alessia had arrived as an enigma, polite, knowledgeable, and seemingly flawless in every explanation she offered, but with no tangible proof to verify her origin. Authorities, realizing they were dealing with a phenomenon that defied standard protocols, decided to expand their investigation beyond the United States. Karen Doyle, who had initially confronted Alessia at the customs counter, coordinated with international agencies to trace any mention of Torenza across global databases, historical archives, and satellite imagery. She discovered that every effort to locate the country geographically yielded nothing. Maps, aerial scans, and navigational charts showed no sign of the infrastructure Alessia had described. There were no airports, no roads, no cities, nothing except vast tracts of uninhabited terrain. Even private satellite companies could detect no human activity corresponding to the coordinates Alessia provided. Yet Alessia's knowledge remained impeccable. She could recite the history of Torenza from memory, its founding in the 12th century, its monarchs and political transitions, trade agreements with neighboring nations, even its traditional foods and festivals. She described the national emblem, a phoenix rising from flames, which matched the symbol embossed on her passport. Experts were stunned by the level of detail, and the coherence of her stories lent an eerie credibility to the otherwise impossible narrative. At the same time, cryptographers and document analysts who examined her passport found anomalies that defied their understanding. The embedded RFID chip did contain digital data, but the encryption algorithms used were unlike anything currently known. It was a hybrid of modern cryptography and sequences that suggested a level of computational sophistication far beyond conventional technology. Dr. Victor Haynes, the cryptography expert, remarked, "The document is real in terms of its physical construction, Yet the information it contains points to a civilization whose technology doesn't exist in our records. It's as if it were created in parallel to our own reality. Adding to the intrigue, Alessia had a small journal, a compact leather-bound notebook with pages covered in unfamiliar script, sketches of landscapes that did not match known geography, and charts resembling planetary coordinates. When experts attempted to decipher it, they found traces of multiple languages, some recognizable but heavily altered, others entirely unknown. Linguists described the script as plausible but indecipherable, a language that followed consistent rules but was entirely foreign. As the investigation expanded, Karen Doyle arranged a controlled experiment. Alessia was asked to demonstrate her knowledge of Torenza in practical terms. She was provided with a blank map of Europe and neighboring regions, and was asked to locate her country and capital. Alessia accurately pointed to a blank area near the Pyrenees, which coincidentally aligned with the location she had verbally described. But every conventional map showed nothing there. When asked to name cities or mark rivers, her answers matched the fictional maps in her journal, with a level of consistency that stunned even seasoned cartographers. The public frenzy escalated as leaked clips of her airport encounter and her map demonstration went viral. Theories ranged from the rational to the utterly bizarre. Conspiracy theorists suggested Torenza was a secret micronation, protected by powerful elites, an experimental society kept hidden from the world. Fringe scientists floated the idea that Alessia had crossed from a parallel universe, a subtle reality overlapping with our own in ways undetectable by conventional means. Others posited that it was an elaborate social experiment or hoax, designed to test the global response to unverified claims. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies began exploring a different angle, tracking her flight records. According to Alessia, she had flown directly from Torenza International Airport to JFK. Investigators combed airline logs worldwide but found no record of flights originating from any location resembling Torenza. Interestingly, Alessia's boarding pass had all the usual markings: airline code, gate number, timestamp, yet it was tied to no known airline or airport in existing databases. It was a physical object that functioned like any other boarding pass but connected to an impossible origin. The mystery deepened when airport security reviewed surveillance footage from other airports. On the day of her departure, Alessia appeared at a small regional terminal, bypassing many standard checkpoints with a subtle confidence that suggested experience in travel, yet with no documentation that could be verified. Her movements were precise, deliberate, and aware of security protocols, as if she understood both human behavior and institutional routines instinctively. Every officer who encountered her described a sense of calm authority, a quiet intelligence that left them unnerved. Among the intelligence team, the question arose: could Alessia be testing the limits of human cognition, or was she merely operating from a place we could not observe? Karen Doyle began keeping detailed notes, trying to reconcile Alessia's tangible presence with her intangible origin. She noticed patterns. Alessia's speech, her references to time zones, and her knowledge of celestial navigation all suggested a highly advanced society. Moreover, her passport's microchip contained encrypted travel logs with coordinates that did not correspond to any known locations on Earth. When plotted, these coordinates formed a network of points that were geometrically precise, almost architectural in their alignment, hinting at a system that was deliberate and highly intelligent. As days turned into weeks, Alessia's case attracted the attention of the scientific community. Astrophysicists, cartographers, linguists, and AI researchers all joined efforts to analyze her materials. A collaborative effort called the Torenza Inquiry Group was formed, pooling resources and expertise from institutions across the globe. Every attempt to simulate her world using known physical laws and satellite data failed. The coordinates she provided, if treated literally, defied conventional geography and physics. The maps in her journal, when layered with global imagery, revealed anomalies, areas of terrain that should exist but didn't, rivers that flowed in impossible directions, mountains that conflicted with topography. Despite all these contradictions, Alessia remained remarkably composed. She answered questions with patience, provided detailed explanations, and seemed almost unaware of the panic or skepticism surrounding her. When asked why she had come to New York, she said simply, "I needed to observe your world. You have technology, knowledge, and resources that we cannot access directly. I came to learn, not to deceive. The investigators faced a dilemma. Every trace of evidence suggested either an extraordinarily sophisticated hoax or a reality they could not comprehend. The line between fact and fiction blurred. Karen Doyle realized that traditional methods, verification through databases, flight records, or satellite imagery, were insufficient. They needed to think differently. A breakthrough came unexpectedly when Dr. Haynes analyzed the RFID chip embedded in Alessia's passport with quantum-level scanning equipment. He discovered a faint signal that appeared to encode data using a combination of classical and quantum encryption. It was not merely a passport. It was a device capable of storing information beyond conventional digital limits. The implications were staggering. If this device could communicate with other systems in a hidden or encrypted dimension, Alessia might literally be traveling from a place that was undetectable by standard Earth-based technology. The implications for national security, science, and international law were staggering. Was Torenza a hidden country with advanced technology, a parallel world intersecting with ours, or an elaborate test by some unknown entity? No one had answers, only questions, and the urgency to uncover the truth grew with each passing day. The world waited, riveted, for the next development. Alessia Rohn, with her Torenza passport and her calm, inscrutable demeanor, had become the living embodiment of mystery. Authorities continued their investigations, journalists published daily updates, and conspiracy theorists crafted increasingly elaborate narratives. Yet the truth remained elusive. And somewhere in the quiet of the observation room at JFK, Alessia studied her journal, her eyes reflecting knowledge of a world that no one else could see, a place that may have existed for centuries without leaving a single trace. The mystery of Torenza was far from solved. In fact, it had only deepened, challenging everything humanity thought it knew about reality, identity, and the hidden corners of the world. Weeks had passed since Alessia Rohn's arrival at JFK Airport, and the global fascination with Torenza had intensified. International media outlets devoted hours of coverage, online forums buzzed with endless speculation, and intelligence agencies across multiple countries collaborated in attempts to understand this seemingly impossible phenomenon. What began as a routine passport check had evolved into a worldwide investigation that challenged everything conventional knowledge said about geography, identification, and reality itself. Karen Doyle, now leading the domestic investigation, convened a special task force at a secure facility outside New York. The room was filled with experts from every conceivable field: cryptographers, linguists, geographers, satellite imaging specialists, and even quantum physicists. Every detail of Alessia's passport, journal, boarding pass, and personal effects had been cataloged and analyzed. Yet, despite the exhaustive work, a crucial question remained unanswered. Where or what was Torenza? The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Dr. Victor Haynes, the cryptography expert, had been conducting a routine analysis of the passport's embedded RFID chip using quantum-level scanners. What he discovered defied conventional understanding. The chip emitted faint electromagnetic patterns that didn't correspond to any known transmission frequency on Earth. More startlingly, when mapped in three-dimensional space, these signals formed a lattice-like pattern resembling geographic coordinates that had no matching features on known maps. It was as if the data was attempting to map a location that could not exist in our physical world, yet followed a precise and deliberate structure. Karen and the team decided to explore these coordinates in a more practical way. Using advanced satellite imaging and drone technology, they created simulations based on the patterns encoded in Alessia's passport. To their astonishment, the simulations revealed formations resembling mountains, rivers, and cities, but none of them matched Earth's terrain. Each structure was geometrically precise, with layouts that suggested intentional planning, urban design, and infrastructure development. Even rivers flowed in patterns that defied conventional hydrology, curving in ways that made mathematical sense but violated gravity in ordinary terms. Meanwhile, Alessia remained cooperative yet enigmatic. When presented with the data, she confirmed its authenticity. "Those are the borders of my homeland," she said, pointing to a holographic projection of the simulated landscape. "That is Torenza. You cannot see it with your satellites because your instruments are tuned for this world." Her calm tone, combined with her detailed explanations of topography, culture, and governance, lent an eerie credibility to her claims. The investigation extended to her journal. Linguists and cryptographers studied the pages which contained maps, symbols, and descriptions of cities and terrain. To the untrained eye, they seemed like elaborate drawings, but experts identified patterns consistent with urban planning, resource allocation, and transportation networks. One linguist noted that the script contained linguistic structures parallel to known human languages, but encoded in a unique way, suggesting that Torenza's society had developed independently of Earth civilizations. Curiosity soon shifted to Alessia's personal movements and knowledge of global aviation. She could recall the flight paths, departure times, and even technical specifications of planes she had never boarded on Earth, yet she described them with exactitude. Flight logs from Torenza, as she explained, were stored differently, using a combination of spatial coordinates and quantum data. This revelation prompted several experts to reconsider what they thought possible. Could Torenza exist in a parallel dimension, or as a hidden realm that intersected with Earth only under specific circumstances? Attempts to trace her physical origin continued. Intelligence agencies reviewed all possible international air traffic data, including unscheduled and private flights. There were no records of her departure from any known airport. Even smaller airstrips in Europe and remote locations yielded no clues. It was as if she had simply appeared in New York, fully formed, carrying sophisticated travel documents, knowledge, and technology from a place no one could locate. The task force also investigated physical evidence she carried, including a pendant in the shape of a wing. Using spectroscopy and metallurgical analysis, the team discovered that it was composed of a lightweight, durable alloy unknown to conventional chemistry databases. Its molecular structure suggested advanced metallurgical engineering, far beyond any mass-produced material on Earth. Alessia claimed it was a traditional emblem of Torenza, used to signify citizenship and heritage. Meanwhile, public fascination continued to grow. Social media was awash with discussions about the implications of Torenza's existence. Was it a micronation? A hidden society? Or something more radical? A civilization existing in a parallel dimension with technology and culture beyond Earth's comprehension? Conspiracy theorists proposed everything from secret government experiments to interdimensional travel. News outlets interviewed experts who admitted that Alessia's knowledge, combined with the tangible anomalies she carried, made the case unprecedented. Despite the mounting pressure, Alessia remained calm and composed. She occasionally walked through the secure observation area, gazing out of the windows at the bustling airport, her eyes reflecting a knowledge of landscapes and civilizations invisible to the rest of the world. When asked if she feared public scrutiny or international intervention, she simply replied, "Torenza has endured for centuries. Exposure to your world is not a threat. It is merely a step toward understanding." As the days passed, the team began identifying more subtle clues. Tiny details on the passport, micro-patterns, encoded symbols, and embedded holographic seals matched patterns found in her journal and pendant. It was as though Alessia's identity was reinforced through multiple layers of tangible evidence, each independently consistent, yet completely untraceable by conventional means. Every expert who analyzed these items described the phenomenon as internally consistent but externally invisible, a paradox that defied standard reasoning. By the end of Part 4, the investigation had taken a new turn. Rather than asking whether Alessia was lying or a hoax, experts began asking a more profound question. Could Torenza actually exist in some form unknown to human science? If so, what was its nature? And how had one of its citizens arrived in New York carrying evidence that was simultaneously real and inexplicable? The mystery had evolved beyond a mere airport incident. It had become a puzzle challenging the very foundations of geography, physics, and human understanding. And Alessia Rohn, the woman with the Torenza passport, sat quietly in the observation room, holding a notebook and pendant that no one could fully explain, while the world outside grappled with the possibility that something incredible had arrived in their midst, something that could change humanity's perception of reality forever. The weeks of investigation had reached a critical point. Alessia Rohn's presence at JFK Airport, once a peculiar anomaly, had grown into an international phenomenon. drawing attention from governments, scientists, and the media alike. Experts had confirmed multiple anomalies in her documents, technology, and knowledge. The question had shifted from, is Torenza real? To how is it real? Every trace she left, her passport, journal, pendant, even her conversations, seemed internally consistent yet defied all verification by known earthly systems. The world had become captivated by a mystery that resisted logic, and now, the final pieces of the puzzle were beginning to emerge. Karen Doyle, now coordinating the task force in a high-security facility, reviewed the latest data alongside Dr. Victor Haynes and an international team of linguists and quantum physicists. They had been analyzing Alessia's RFID chip for weeks, using the most advanced quantum decoding technology available. Haynes had discovered that embedded within the chip were patterns that aligned with quantum probability matrices, suggesting a form of data storage and communication that transcended conventional physics. Unlike any encryption method known on Earth, these patterns interacted with electromagnetic fields in ways that allowed data to exist in multiple states simultaneously, as if the passport contained a digital map of another dimension. "This is incredible," Haynes said, voice tinged with disbelief. "It's not just a passport. It's a portal, a coordinate system for a location that exists in a parallel or overlapping reality." Karen leaned forward, examining the holographic projection Haynes had generated. The simulation displayed a landscape that bore all the hallmarks Alessia had described: sprawling cities with architectural designs unlike anything on Earth, rivers that curved in precise geometric patterns, and mountain ranges that defied conventional topography. It was as if Torenza existed in a plane of reality adjacent to Earth, accessible only to those who possessed the precise knowledge and the passport to locate it. Alessia, observing the projection, smiled faintly. "You've found it," she said softly. "This is my homeland. You can see it, yet your world cannot touch it." The team was astonished. Every previous theory, parallel universes, hidden micronations, elaborate hoaxes now had tangible evidence pointing toward an unprecedented reality. Torenza was a real civilization, but one existing in a dimension hidden from conventional detection. Its citizens, like Alessia, could cross into Earth under specific conditions, carrying physical objects, passports, pendants, journals, encoded with multi-dimensional data to verify identity and origin. The implications were staggering. Not only had a parallel world been revealed, but the mechanisms of its existence were now partially understood. Alessia explained that Torenza had intentionally remained hidden from Earth to protect its resources, culture, and population. The people of Torenza had developed technology and knowledge far beyond Earth's current capabilities, including advanced materials, energy systems, and quantum communication methods. Her arrival in New York had been deliberate, an observation mission designed to study Earth's society and gather knowledge without exposing the larger population. As the task force absorbed this revelation, Alessia provided further context. Torenza was a constitutional monarchy with a king who had ruled for decades. Its cities were technologically advanced but harmonized with nature, and its education system emphasized mastery of science, arts, and multidimensional navigation. The pendant she wore, previously analyzed as an unknown alloy, was a symbol of citizenship, a device that encoded personal and spatial data, ensuring secure passage between dimensions. The journalists and media outlets, who had been following every detail, began broadcasting the story worldwide. Scientists, skeptics, and political leaders alike debated the reality of Torenza. Some insisted on further verification, while others argued that this discovery could redefine human understanding of geography, physics, and cosmology. Social media erupted with theories, visualizations, and artistic interpretations of the newly revealed civilization. Meanwhile, Alessia remained calm and composed. She had grown accustomed to human skepticism, but never wavered in her explanation. "Your world is fascinating," she told the task force. "It is complex, vibrant, and full of potential. Torenza has observed from afar, learning, understanding, and now interacting cautiously for the first time." In a carefully coordinated demonstration, Alessia guided Karen Doyle and several scientists through the process of temporarily accessing Torenza's dimension. Using the passport, pendant, and a combination of quantum field alignments, They activated a visual interface that projected a three-dimensional holographic window. Through it, they could see the capital city of Torenza, its streets bustling with citizens, vehicles moving with a silent efficiency, and monumental structures that seemed to defy conventional architecture. Rivers glimmered with luminescent water, and mountains rose with crystalline precision. The reality was breathtaking, simultaneously familiar and alien. As the team watched, Alessia explained that Torenza's people had developed methods to interact with Earth selectively, observing without being observed, and sharing knowledge only under strict protocols. The discovery raised questions about international law, security, and ethical considerations. Should Torenza remain hidden? Should humanity be informed fully? Alessia's mission was to answer these questions gradually, ensuring that Earth could handle the knowledge without destabilizing social, political, or scientific frameworks. The revelation sent shockwaves across the world. Scientific institutions scrambled to analyze the quantum and multidimensional principles underlying Torenza's existence. Governments considered diplomatic protocols for interacting with a civilization beyond known space-time. Philosophers and ethicists debated the implications for human identity, free will, and the nature of reality itself. Despite all the attention and excitement, Alessia maintained her composure. She had achieved her goal, to reveal a glimpse of Torenza while ensuring its security and guiding humanity toward understanding. Torenza has always existed, she said quietly. We are part of your reality, yet separate. This is only the beginning of a new chapter, for both our worlds. By the end of the investigation, Alessia returned to her homeland, leaving behind the passport, pendant, and journal as artifacts for study. Every analysis confirmed the same truth. Torenza was no myth, no hoax. It was a hidden civilization, advanced, intelligent, and now partially revealed to the people of Earth. And while the world buzzed with theories, discoveries, and debates, one thing remained clear. The arrival of Alessia Rohn and her Torenza passport had changed humanity's understanding of possibility forever. A parallel civilization had been revealed, and with it came the profound realization that reality itself was far more intricate and mysterious than anyone had imagined. The Torenza mystery, once a simple airport anomaly, had become the story that would redefine history, science, and the imagination of generations to come.